Today, as we talk about leadership in Morocco, leadership challenges in Morocco, you are somebody. Today is not a day of criticizing leaders. Today is not a day of saying, I wish they would do something. Today is a day for every one of you, whether you're a leader in a large organization today, whether you are influencing people in the circles you have, to examine your own leadership, examine the culture you are in, to find better and more effective ways to meet those challenges. And of course, make my mother proud as well, if you would do that too. So, I've been introduced a bit. I want to also introduce two pieces of material that I think are very interesting that I just discovered thanks to Dr. Reinhardt. Two major books up here with some research that I will be quoting about leadership across the globe and the impact of culture on leadership. Let's see how we get this to work. Voila. So, for 10 years, there was a global study done, 1994 to 2004, on cultural influence on leadership and organizations. A professor from Wharton, the University of Pennsylvania, led it. But there were 170 social scientists and management scholars from around the world. And they looked at effective leadership around the world, including Morocco. And thanks to some work that Dr. Reinhardt has done here with the LDI, we're going to talk about that today. Because this was a very compelling study and will help us have more effective leadership. I'm also going to pull on my 10 years experience here, working with young leaders from AUI, working with multinationals, to point out the relevance that we've seen here in Morocco. But first, we're going to start with some questions about leadership. Okay, ready? These are questions you guys have to answer. You're sharp? Had your copy? It's about questions about leadership globally in Morocco. And some of my executive MBA folks are here, so I'm expecting high things from you all, Fatima. True or false? Effective leadership characteristics are universally endorsed worldwide. True or false? False. So you don't think leadership effective traits are the same across the world? You guys have already read these books, and you know that, right? You think it's true? Let's see the answer. Out of 66 leadership characteristics that this 10-year study found, 4 are universally endorsed as effective. So there's 66 leadership characteristics out there that this study has found, and 4 are universally endorsed. So here they come. You ready? Number 1, charismatic, value-based. Across the globe, people believe leaders are effective when they're visionary, inspirational, and self-sacrificial. So as Dr. Moesha said, we as leaders are leaders, as Winston Churchill said, because we follow. So to understand what your people, what your followers, what your organizations want and think is effective in a leader, number 1 is charismatic, value-based. Number 2, team-oriented, as defined as being collaborative and communicative. So an effective leadership trait across the globe is when you collaborate and when you communicate. Number 3, participative. Look at the definition of participative. Delegate, egalitarian, not a micromanager. Okay? Across the globe, from Australia to North America, from Argentina to Hong Kong, participative. And number 4, humane, generous, and compassionate. Any surprises? Any surprises? Make sense? Okay, we're going to raise the bar on you. Question number 2. True or false? Effective leadership characteristics are culturally contingent. Okay, what do I mean by culturally contingent? What works in Moroccan culture may not work in American culture? True? You sure? You sure? Okay, I'm going to test you guys to see if you really know. Here are 10 leadership characteristics. Okay? You can read through them. Humble, modest, dignified. You've got the charismatic thing up there. Okay, take a look at those 10. Everybody can read, right? Now then, I want you to match the country or culture to the leadership characteristic. Let's test if you guys are true or not. You're saying it is culturally contingent. Well, if you're correct, that means these countries, how many countries or cultures are showing? 6. How many characteristics? Okay, so I'll give you a hint. Every country shown, the 6, will have a characteristic. But since I have 4 characteristics, what does that mean? Some of them have multiple. Okay, so give yourself about 5-10 seconds here. We're going to match the country and culture to the characteristic. And they are MISI, they're mutually exclusive. For example, only one culture has risk-taking. Risk-taking is not repeated. Okay? Got your head around it? You want to take a couple of notes so you can see how close you are? Shall I ask Dr. Owisha to come up and see if he can get it? No. It's fine. But Dr. Lowe, you could ask him. Because these are your books, sir.
Well, I haven't read the books, but I can tell you.
Oh, you can? Okay, here we go. Okay, so let's start with American. What's the guess? Which of these characteristics are American leadership characteristics? Risk-taking. Power and strength. What else? Okay. Empowerment, okay. Good. Okay. Yes, sir? Egalitarian. Okay, here we go. According to the Globe study across the world, the leadership characteristics are culturally contingent. Americans risk-taking, bold, forceful, confident, empower, autonomy, delegated authority. That's a classic American leadership characteristic. How about era? What do you think? Get a little close to home here. What do you think? And, according to the Globe study, worshipped by constituents. A leadership characteristic in the Arab culture is leaders are worshipped by their constituents. How about the Dutch? Are we Dutch in the room? Those who work for the Dutch? Gordon? What do you think?
Consensus building.
Consensus building, he says. Okay. Charismatic, you think? Power and strength, they say. Okay, and the Dutch? Egalitarian, and as was pointed out by some studies, and Gordon can tell us if we're right or not, that actually the word leader is a bit of a stigma. When the Globe study talked to a lot of managers, okay, Dutch managers, the story told is, if your parent is a leader, you don't say that in school. You don't say my mommy or daddy is a leader, because the word actually has some stigma attached to it. Interesting. Let's go to the French. Which of these is French? Come on, guys. This should be you. Okay. Charismatic. I heard that. Consensus building, effective negotiators. They are the diplomats of the world, yes? Effective negotiations, leadership characteristic. Iranian? I heard a lot of power and strength, and that is correct. Power and strength. And our last one, Malaysian. Okay, very good. So now that we've determined leadership characteristics are culturally contingent, our number one challenge as Moroccans, as leaders in Morocco, is how do we, in the 21st century, which will be the century of the global world, you all will be the leaders of a global world. You will be leaders that need to lead in a global economic village. Yet, leaders in Morocco still have to lead in a Moroccan culture. So how does Morocco Morocco's culture impact leadership? The next chart's going to be a little hard to read. I apologize in advance. This is the globe study circle in which they have identified 10 culture clusters. In yellow, the upper left corner is where Morocco clusters with the Middle East, along with Turkey, Kuwait, Egypt, and Qatar. These clusters, you can read in Eastern Europe, Sub-Saharan Africa, Latin Europe, Germanic Europe, Anglo, Nordic Europe, Latin America, Southern Asia, Confucian Asia. They are placed here intentionally. Can you guess the placement around the wheel, what they're trying to tell us?
It moves.
It moves. They're related. So the leadership culture of the Middle East is more closely related in characteristics to who's on his left and right? Eastern Europe and Confucian Asia. What's directly opposite? Correct. When I saw this, I had my first aha, and then I thought, what a great opportunity for Al-Hawaiian students who primarily come from an Arab culture and are learning American-style methods. You guys are going to have a whole wheel covered because you're learning both ends. I also looked where the French were. Where are the French? They're kind of right in the middle, aren't they? Here we go. The French are right in between. Okay? So the globe study took the 62 countries and analyzed them, grouped like countries. And they ranked every country on leadership characteristics. And this is what we're going to go into next. The cultural context of leadership in Morocco. Thanks to Dr. Reinhardt's studies, he's taken some of the work from Globe and brought it more closely to home. So, Project Globe analyzed 62 countries and cultures. We're now going to talk about how Morocco is characterized. You ready? You guys keeping up with me? You sleeping yet? Okay, here we go. Cultural dimension number 1. Morocco is the highest culture, context of leadership, in power distance. Number 1 in power distance. Number 1 out of 62 countries. Power distance refers to the degree that members of the culture, expect power to be distributed, what? Unequally between the high and the low. So, you have a leader and a looky there. Have we seen this in this culture? Does this resonate? I'm the new guy. I'm the young one. I can't. The power's up there. Morocco, the highest in power distance. When I first read this, I went, wow, that makes a lot of sense. Okay? Number 2, Morocco is high in societal in-group collectivism. I love these terms. Societal in-group collectivism. Think about our culture. Think about our Moroccan culture. We're very what-oriented? What's this a picture of? Family. And this is a picture of a large organization in front of a Casbah somewhere. Morocco is number 6 out of 62 countries in in-group collectivism, defined as the degree to which individuals express pride, loyalty, and cohesiveness in the organizations or families. So think about this. You have a high degree of pride in your family and in the organization you represent here today. The AUI alumni are coming back in droves today because they're proud of their organization. I do some consulting with OCP. Whenever we do any change management programs with OCP, we pull on the pride of the company, the pride of the country, the natural resource of phosphate, and that is pulling on the wonderment of the culture of being high in societal and group collectivism. Okay? Number 3, Morocco is high in assertiveness as a society practice. Ever been around 2 guys like this? Being very assertive with each other, right? Very direct. You're number 13 out of 62 countries in assertiveness as a society practice, which is defined as the degree to which individuals in an organization are assertive, tough, dominant, and aggressive in social relationships. Okay? So I've got two little boys that like that. Yeah, they're kind of socially being aggressive there. And I think around work, potentially we've seen we're very aggressive socially. Do I hear nods or do I have any argument? Agree or disagree? Agree? Rashid? Okay. See, I know some of you guys' first names, so you're here. Number 4. Now we're going to go to the other end of the spectrum. We've been doing what Morocco's high end. I'm going to take you now to the low end. Morocco is almost the lowest in visionary leadership. Ranked as number 61. Only Qatar is lower. Just above France. Visionary leadership reflects readiness for the future events, imagination, vision, goal-based planning, very action behavior, and of course the ability to inspire and motivate others. So Morocco's almost the lowest. Number 2, or next to 5, Morocco is almost the lowest in performance orientation. Okay? Number 61, tied with France, only Qatar is lower. So performance orientation, think about this, listen closely, this one's big, is the extent to which leaders stress continuous improvement and high performance. So Morocco is low because the leadership here, based on this study, generally, leaders in Morocco culturally do not stress continuous improvement and high standards of performance. Okay? And now, the last one I want to talk about. Morocco is low in future orientation, number 56 out of 62. Future orientation refers to planning and living for the future. So low means an acceptance of the status quo. Okay. Are we with you guys? You're with me? Are we saying nods? Are we thinking this is generally resonating with how we've experienced leadership in Morocco? Or do you think I'm just out left? So far so good? There's a lot to take in. There's a lot to take in. So now then, let's go to application. As Dr. Womishi said, we're here about application, not theory. So this is Morocco's culture. So I've just summarized here the 6 things we just went through. On the high, Morocco scored high in power distance, in-group collectivism, and assertiveness as a society. And low in future orientation, future orientation, performance orientation, visionary leadership. So remember our pictures. What was that a picture of? Power. Okay. What's this?
Group.
Okay. There's our assertiveness. Okay. But in our 21st century world, universally endorses leaders who are, what did we say? What's our gap? And what's our challenge? This is who we are. This is our culture that we exist in as leaders. I will tell you our first challenge is to become visionary leaders in spite of a high power distance culture. Remember who somebody is? We are somebody. And our challenge is to be the visionary leaders in spite of our power distance culture. We can be the charismatic, value-based leaders in spite of where we exist today. Okay? We can, watch her, she's going to grow up. Watch this, this is very subtle. It took me a long time to do this, guys. Okay? She's going to grow up. That's your first challenge as you go through today. Your second challenge, use our culture of collectivism and assertiveness. It's who we are. Use it to strategize for the future, for our families, and for our country. So take this greatness and turn it into a compass. Turn it into planning the direction for the future. Because we do love our families and love our country, and we are very strong in collectiveness. So we take who we are great at and make it greater. Our third challenge. I challenge you today as you go through all the sessions to think about how to create a new culture of performance orientation by collaborating and empowering your teams. Remember what we said were the top characteristics globally endorsed? You can do that. You can create a new. It's not there today, but you can create a new. Remember? It's quite low. And how you do it as leaders is you continuously stress continuous improvement and high standards of performance. Just like athletes. Think about athletes and coaching in sports. That coach doesn't say the status quo is okay. Think about the runners you see around EFRAN. Their coaches don't say, yeah, that's good enough. No, it's a culture of continuous improvement and high performance. So, I'm going to summarize for us now our 3 leadership challenges. Our first challenge is
become visionary leaders in spite of our high resistance culture.
number 2.
Second challenge, use our culture, collectivism, assertiveness to strategize our future.
So do something in spite of the culture we're in, use the culture we're in, and create a new culture. So that's a lot of words. For those of you who know me, I teach this process called effective presentations in the power formula. You must have an elevator speech. You must have a very short way to say things. So we're going to learn it now. We become visionary leaders in spite of. Everybody together? Become visionary leaders in spite of. And it says ... That's in spite of whatever you want to fill in the blank. Because you're going to grow up and be beside the power, yes? We're going to use our culture to strategize for the future. All together?
Use our culture to strategize for the future.
There's our compass. And then remember the athlete? What are we going to do as far as the athlete?
Create a new culture.
Okay. And I'm going to end this with some of my favorite words. And you put the images back up. They remember what these are. And remember what my mother said. I often wondered why somebody didn't do something. And then I realized that I am somebody. By the way, my mother's not really Tomlin, but she's like I wondered why somebody didn't do something. And then I realized I am somebody. And then my favorite one, my final one. Can you read it?
Yeah.
If you should ever think you're too small to make a difference, you haven't spent a night with a mosquito. You will make a difference. You are the leaders of the 21st century from Morocco. And I applaud you for being here, for wanting to make a difference, and I hope you have a great conference, and I'm willing to take questions now.